Now, it's only a small township, so what is the significance of Jenin in this long-running conflict? Well, there are 19 Palestinian refugee camps that have been set up over the decades in the West Bank, according to the UN. But time and again, it's Jenin that sees the most violent and deadly clashes with Israeli forces. Conflict there isn't anything new, stretching back more than 70 years. The camp in Jenin was originally set up to house thousands of dispossessed Palestinians after the State of Israel was established in 1948. Over decades, it grew, transforming into a small township rather than a traditional camp, and is now home to about 23,000 people. Its citizens, often third or fourth generation, have frequently expressed anger at being treated as refugees within their own home, left powerless and poor. And all around them, Israel has forged ahead with the construction of new illegal West Bank settlements. Just last month, its government approved another 5,000 new homes. Living under the constant threat of eviction, often unemployed and disenfranchised, Jenin has become a notorious hotbed for what Palestinians consider armed resistance and Israelis call terrorism. The camp in Jenin was the arena of some of the worst bloodshed during the Second Intifada in the early 2000s. Many of the suicide bombers who led the uprising came from here. In response, Israeli forces carried out a devastating raid on the camp, killing 52, half of whom were civilians. More than 20 years later, an almost identical scenario is playing out again. The Israeli government has insisted this one, though, was a targeted operation, the former Prime Minister describing it as a tweezer-like attack. I asked Tamara Alrifai from UNRWA, the UN agency responsible for Palestine's 6 million refugees, whether that was realistic when I spoke to her earlier.
Any fighting in a densely populated area always deals a big blow to the neighborhood, to the infrastructure, to the homes of people, to their livelihoods, and to their psychological well-being. Our team at UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestine Refugees, went in today to start to look at the scale of the damage and to start to look at the needs of the population that was there and to start to plan our return, because for the last 2 days, we were not able to carry out our basic critical services. Now, for the record, UNRWA runs basic services, public-like services, schools, health centers, food distribution in Palestine refugee camps. There are 19 of them in the West Bank, in the occupied West Bank.
I mean, you talk about your organisation going back in, you've not been able to be there. Some of the people who are living there, who had nowhere to flee, talking to our team on the ground, have been very critical of your agency. They're asking, you know, where were you in the run-up to this operation? Where were you when the Israelis were making clear there would be this sort of attack? They feel abandoned by you. Is that fair?
That is fair to say for anyone who has just undergone the kind of events of the last 2 days. It is fair to expect that such events do not happen, and it is fair to expect that humanitarian organizations would get in. From a humanitarian organization perspective, it is not possible to access across active hostilities. So for the last 2 days, our teams have been trying to get in, and it has not been possible. However, part of our team lives in Jenin camp. I have colleagues who come from Jenin camp and with whom we've been in contact over the last 2 years. Today, that team from Jenin camp and my colleagues from our office in East Jerusalem were all together in Jenin camp trying to assess what they're going to roll out as of tomorrow.
I mean, briefly, if you would, your agency does face a real problem in terms of how much it will be able to do for the people who have just been through so much. The blunt truth is you don't have enough funds. You've just raised 100 million of the 300 million you need. Why are donor countries so reluctant to help?
There are a variety of reasons. There is a bit of disengagement at the global level from the Israel-Palestine conflict altogether. There is competition, for lack of a better word, with other humanitarian crises. There is a crisis, which is the Palestine refugee cause crisis that has been going on for far too long for younger policymakers to remember the origin of it, which is a conflict unresolved. You said it, we are facing immense funding problems. These are going to get worse now because of the Jenin situation. It is extremely urgent for our donors, our partners, to come to our rescue and to the rescue of UNRWA.
Do you think that some donors just don't want to go anywhere near this trouble? They don't want to go anywhere near this conflict?
Indeed, in the list of priorities of conflicts in the world, this one is no longer in the top 5, unfortunately. And so that lack of interest, plus intense politicizing of the Israel-Palestine conflict, makes it difficult to support us.
Tamara, Alrifai, thank you so much for talking to us today. Thank you.
Thank you.